Welcome back. You're watching To The Point. A speech on Saturday by the RSS Sang Chalak has aroused the anger of both MPs and India's minorities. He calls the historical conversion of Hindus loot and insists, "Main apna maal wapas lunga, ye kaun si badi baat hai." The Sang Chalak has also called India a Hindu Rashtra and asked for an anti-conversion law. But are his remarks inflammatory rather than historically accurate? And is there a need for an anti-conversion law, or does the penal code suffice? My guests are the former editor of The Organizer and BJP National Executive Member Seshadri Chari, the editor of The Word Among Us, Father Dominic Emmanuel, a member of the All India Muslim Personal Law Board, Kamal Farooqi, and the head of the Centre for Public Affairs and Critical Theory at Shivnadar University, Dipankar Gupta. Dipankar Gupta, let's start with what the RSS Sang Chalak said on Saturday, before we come to the second issue, whether India needs an anti-conversion law against A, forced conversions, and B, conversions by inducement and allurement. Now, speaking about alleged Hindus who have in earlier generations converted to Christianity or Islam, the Sang Chalak said on Saturday, "वो लोग अपने आप नहीं गए, उनको लूट कर, लालच देकर लेकर गए। अभी चोर पकड़ा गया है, मैं माल चोर के पास, मेरा माल चोर के पास है." How do you respond, A, to that thought, and B, to the language used to express it?
I think the language is absolutely atrocious. There's no doubt about it. To call them luteras and chores doesn't make sense at all. Then to say that after several generations, the great-great-great-great-grandchildren of whoever first converted must pay for the sins of their ancestors is really completely out of the question. And it's so outrageous that one doesn't know even where to begin. By the way, as if all of this weren't bad enough, what he's saying is also against our constitution. And yet people like him get away with impunity and nobody seems to take them on. And this is not the first time that they've been saying these things. They've been saying it for the last 50 or 60 years or more. And unfortunately, different political regimes have not reined them in adequately.
Seshadri Chari, you've just heard Dipankar Gupta, one of India's most eminent sociologists, say that A, the language used by the Sang Chalak is appalling, and many would say that in fact it's unbefitting of someone of his stature. And secondly, the very thought that you could consider people who perhaps converted generations ago, maybe even a century or two ago, as people who've been looted is mistaken and wrong. How do you respond to that point by Dipankar Gupta?
No, the point here is the language is one issue, but the facts are very different. There has been rampant conversion going on in this country, especially which has been propagated by the church. A section of the church has used conversion as a tool.
Christian church guilty of looting? And how do you respond to the charge being made by Mr. Chari that the Christian church has been for 2,000 years harvesting souls, as he put it, and in fact I think he was using the language of the last Pope, and that this is an attitude that is unacceptable, this is a practice that is unacceptable. How do you respond to that, Mr. Father Dominic?
I'm very glad that he and you are using words that it is the Christianity which has been in India for last 2,000 years, and our record seems to be dismal, that we have been keeping our population at 2.3%, which has come down from 2.6% in 1971 to 2.3%. I would like to know and ask Mr. Chari and everybody else, where the hell is this harvest? Where is this harvest? Where is the evidence of any harvest anywhere at all? This country, which is a country of poor people, and if we were targeting the poor as we are, then where is the result? Can somebody tell me a result? And can he produce one evidence and one proof of anybody, like 2 weeks ago they produced proof of people being called to give BPL cards and ration cards and things like that at Agra, misleading people, telling lies, Now they are using the same thing what they have been doing. They think that the missionaries have been doing, which is absolutely wrong, and I completely deny this as a person, editor of The Word Among Us, that this is not happening.
Let me stop you there, then, Father Dominic, and let me go back to Seshadri Chari. Seshadri Chari, there were two very interesting facts that Father Dominic quoted, and they seem to, for most laymen at any rate, prove the point in his favor, not yours. He says, in 1971, the Christian population was 2.6% of the total Indian population. Today, it's come down to 2.3. Now, if it's really the case, as you're arguing, that the Christian church has been harvesting souls, to use your colorful language, then instead of coming down, the percentage of the population would have gone up. Surely the fact that it's come down disproves your claim that they are doing any conversion of any meaningful nature at all. Otherwise, you have to then add, they're pretty hopeless at converting.
Let me tell Father that greatest respect and regard for not only Father Dominic, but also to all those people whom I have met in the church through him. I have been talking and dealing with these people for a very, very long time. We are not raising this issue from the point of view of what is happening in the recent years. But if you look at the map of the Northeast, the politicization of the, to a very large extent of the church. I am not saying each and every church and each and every father in this, pastor in this country is politicized. But this issue has been used, politicized in Kerala, in Northeast, in Mizoram, in Nagaland, in all these places.
Okay.
So let us not forget, as I would rather quote Jesus here, that he who has not sinned may cast the first stone. We are all sinners.
Well, yes, I'm glad you admit it. That's a very important point you're admitting. We are all sinners, because in a moment's time I want to come to the conversions the Hindu family and allies that you support are doing. They're as much as what you accuse others of. But I'll come to that in a moment's time. The second thing, Dipankar Gupta, that the Sangh Sancharak said that I want to discuss is his claim or his description of India as a Hindu Rashtra. Would you as a sociologist accept that definition, or would you contest it?
Well, you see, there's no question of me as a sociologist accepting or not. It is against the constitution. India is not Hindu Rashtra in the secular democratic republic. And as far as it comes to luteras and chores, even if you assume for a moment that the poor and the depressed were weaned away from Hinduism by all kinds of allurements, there's obviously something wrong in the Hindu caste system that drove some people away. In other words, what I'd argue is that maybe we should look at the Hindu religion and the Hindu caste order carefully to find out why do people find it so unattractive. Vivekananda long back said to some of those Christians and missionaries who came to India that when they looked down upon Hinduism, he said that, you know, if you go back to Christ, you'll find that Christ respected all religions. Go back to Christ and you'll find so much bhakti in Christ. Likewise, I'd like to tell these people who talk about conversion, go back to Vivekananda, you'll find a lot of truth and relevance for today's crisis in Vivekananda's teachings.
Come on, Farooqi, leaving aside the fact that it may be unconstitutional to describe India as a Hindu Rashtra, the Sangh Sancharak probably draws veracity for his description from the fact that 82% of the population of this country is Hindu. Now, as a member of the Muslim Personal Law Board, but a full-fledged Indian citizen, are you happy for your country to be described as a Hindu Rashtra, or does that annoy you?
Karan, absolutely not. Because my country is not a Hindu country. It's a secular country, and my constitution has given me full right to live as whatever religion I follow. What Mr. Dipankar has said, in fact, Sheshadri Bhai should understand that he is talking something very, very crucial, in fact. And as far as calling the Hindutva, the entire country as a Hindu, please understand that some of this, you referred about only one statement of Mr. Mahan. Please understand the entire family is been putting the entire country on fire. They are saying 2 lakh rupees for Christian, 5 lakh rupees for Muslim. They are saying by 2021 there will not be any Christian, there will not be any Muslim. Then they say that it is Ghar Wapsi. by the way, from where you have got this Ghar Wapsi? If that is the Ghar Wapsi, you said that most of the Muslims are converted. You mean to say that all the Muslims should vanish from here? This is what actually your purpose,
okay,
or the purpose of RSS? And the third and the last thing which I want to make, in fact, that they are playing a very dangerous game by allowing all these organizations, and what Mohan Bhagwat is saying to Vishwa Hindu Parishad, all other, whether it is Jangan, the Tugadiya affair or any other, they are patronizing them. And at the same time, even the BJP says that we are, very proudly we say that we are a RSS person. So what actually do you mean?
Well,
why do you speak in two voices? Even BJP should say, no,
let me stop you. You've raised many important issues. You've raised many important issues, Mr. Farooqi. I want to put one of them to Mr. Chari. Mr. Chari, the issue I'm going to pick up and put to you is this. The Sangsang Chalak has gone out of his way to call the Christians and the Muslims who may in historical times have converted Hindus, people who did loot. But are you forgetting that as far back as 185 BC, Pushyamitra Sunga was forcibly converting Buddhists to Hinduism, and he was killing them if they wouldn't convert. In the 6th century AD, Mihira Kula did that. In the 7th century AD, Shashank did that. Now, what I put to you is that this sort of forcible conversion has been done by Hindus against Buddhists. How come the Sangsang Chalak keeps quiet about that? Were they not looting?
Out the Buddhists, they want to now chase out the Christians and the Muslims from this country. If Mr. Bhagwat wants a Hindu Rashtra, let him go to North Pole, I would say, or the South Pole. This is Bharat Varsh, this is the Republic of India, and this is my home. If he wants to get Ghar Wapsi, let him get people from America and from Russia and bring them to India to have his Rashtra here, not my home.
Can I bring in Professor Gupta at that point? Professor Gupta, the Sangsang Chalak is making... Just a moment, Mr. Farooqi, I'll come to you. Mr. Farooqi, I'll come to you in a moment's time. Just hold your peace. Professor Gupta, the Sangsang Chalak is trying to draw a distinction between conversion, which is what he claims happens when Hindus switch to Christianity and Islam. Presumably it also happens when they switch to Buddhism and Sikhism, but he doesn't talk about that. And Ghar Wapsi, which is what happens when these people return to Hinduism, sometimes generations if not centuries later. Is that a valid distinction, or is Ghar Wapsi just another name for conversion, and is he being clever in using it rather than saying conversion outright?
You see, the first, I mean, when you talked about conversion and you mentioned Buddhism, I think we should also mention the fact that Adi Shankaracharya was very upset with the Buddhists and Jains, and in tradition, Buddhists, Jains and Charvakas were called Nastiks. So in other words, there was really no amity between Buddhists, Jains
but do answer my question before we run out of time.
The second thing is that as far as Ghar Wapsi is concerned, if we believe that Ghar Wapsi is a valid statement, then we must also assume that generations of Muslims and Christians have been completely out of their minds and imbeciles and unable to think for themselves. They were like dumb-driven cattle, and they were not worthy of respect. They were not individuals with an iota of brain in their head, which is why they can now come back home and they'll all be very happy and cuddly. The fact of the matter is that you should look at these people who you think are outside of your Hindu fold as rational, reasonable, and thinking people. They are not the kind that don't have an idea of where they like to be.
Can I stop you, because I'm running out of time?
You have to give them respect.
Professor Gupta, can I stop you? I want to put a second question to you, which I think is even more important, and I'm interrupting you because I'm running out of time. I want to come very quickly to the demand for a law to ban A, forced conversions, and B, what are called conversions by inducement and allurement. There is a view, Professor Gupta, that in fact forced conversions are already covered by sections of the penal code. You don't need fresh law and fresh legislation. And when it comes to conversions by inducement and allurement, people say these are meaningless, because if someone is converted by inducement, he can be reconverted back by another inducement. So why worry about it? How do you respond to that part of what the Sangsang Chalak said? Do you need a law, or do you think it's irrelevant because it already exists, or the conversions being talked about are meaningless? I'm stopping you there. I want to bring in Kamal Farooqi on this particular specific point. Kamal Farooqi, There is an opposite argument to the one I put a moment ago to Professor Gupta. And that opposite argument goes like this. It's sections 153A, 295A and 298 of the Penal Code that cover forced conversions, but actually those sections are not about forced conversions. They're about things like deliberate and malicious acts intended to outrage religious feelings. They're about uttering words that wound religious sentiments. They're about promoting public enmity. They're not directly about forced conversions. And even someone like Soli Sorabji says there is a case for a more specific law and a tighter law to deal specifically with forced conversion. Since the Islamic faith is against forced conversions, would you accept that maybe on forced conversions we need a tougher, more specific law?
Karan, Karan, do we need any law for the fraud? Do we need any law for allurement? Do we need a law for having the discomfort in the public? Do we need these kind of laws? In fact, we are already there. So where is the need? And I want to ask two questions to Seshadri Bhai, to whom I have great respect.
But don't go off the subject, please. Let's stick to this point.
Is it Hindu or you are something else?
No, Mr. Farooqi, I'm going to stop general polemical questions being asked of each other. I want a focused discussion, and at the moment we're talking about the need for a law. Your position is you don't need a law because you're arguing the law already covers it sufficiently. What about Soli Sorabji's point that maybe the law is not sufficient on this issue of forced conversion? How do you respond to that? Give me a short, sharp answer to that again. No? We seem to have lost Mr.
Make out the strict law. Make out the strict law for the forced conversion. I have no problem. But don't try to think that you are going to stop the conversion at all.
That's fine.
This is my.
I take your point.
This is my country.
Make out a strict law on forced conversion, but don't try and stop conversion. Very quickly, because I'm running out of time. I'm not talking about forced conversion.
Okay.
I'm coming to you on the issue of conversion by allurement and inducement.
Yes.
I know the church believes that's wrong.
Absolutely.
But you also know that there are Pentecostal churches who are accused of doing it. Do you think we need a law specifically on conversion by allurement and inducement?
I do not think that there is a need for any law. For allurement and fraudulent means, there is 420 of the IPC.
And forced conversion, even though everyone's against forced conversion, it will be misused, as you're hearing from Father Dominic, it often is, to actually stop genuine conversions which are completely protected by Article 25 of the Constitution. So rather than create a law that is going to be misused, it's better to rely upon those elements of the penal code that exist. A quick answer to that in 30 seconds.
No, the Constitution does not allow conversion at all. The Constitution specifically says that you can propagate your religion but not proselytize.
Well, that's a very disputed interpretation of the Supreme Court.
Choose one's religion. Choose one's religion.
Let us have a strong anti-conversion law which forbids any kind of conversion through either coercion, force or allurement, so that the Inquisition into Goa can be stopped, so that what the Mughals did to the Sikh
I'm going to have to stop you there, Mr. Chari. We're running out of time. My apologies to you. I'm going to have to stop you there. We're running out of time, but I'll add one thing as information and elucidation for the audience. The Supreme Court interpretation given by A.N. Ray, I believe in the late 70s, that propagation doesn't include proselytization, is a very disputed one. Soli Sorabji on this program last week pointed out that the learned judge has simply consulted the Oxford Dictionary and come up with that conclusion, and it is a highly disputed conclusion, and Soli Sorabji believes that if challenged, it would be struck down by the Supreme Court. So maybe you shouldn't rely upon that to claim proselytization and conversion is not permitted. After all, proselytization and conversion, when it happens genuinely, is an expression of free speech, and it is protected also by Article 19 in addition to Article 25. But my thanks to all four of my guests for joining me. We end there for tonight. You have been. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.